The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello friends, thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week we'll review Austin's 3-2 thrilling win over Colorado. We'll be joined by Trevor Scott from We Are Austin on CBS Austin to chat about his experience doing the heartbeat of Austin before the game on Pride Week. And then we'll also cover a few other pieces of Austin FC news. My name's Landon and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Bentley. And Landon, you had a big weekend, man. You had a birthday party on Friday. You had a birthday on Saturday. You got to hold a dog that's named after the show at some point. What were your highlights from what you had going on?
Oh, man, so many highlights. Birthday celebration Friday. Felt lots of love. So thanks for all the folks who gave me love in person or virtually. Then Saturday played soccer for the first time in over 2 months after having an injury and getting back out there. So that felt really good. And you didn't re-injure yourself again? I did not re-injure myself again.
Awesome. Good.
Yeah. And then, big tailgate before the final game of the season. Going into the game, just like, I don't know, vibes seemed good. Everyone was just like, oh, we're just going to go and have a good time. The game doesn't matter. There's no stakes really. So let's just all go and enjoy ourselves. So that was nice. We go inside the stadium. Mike and Steph were unavailable this week to interview the dog as they do for Swoon Tower every week. And so they asked the Moon Tower extended family if anybody would be able to fill in. And so my mother and my wife ended up interviewing the dog. And the reason that they were so emphasizing that they wanted someone from the Moon Tower family there is because it was a litter of 10 puppies, one of whom was named after our show. And that was very, very cool to get to hold a little puppy named after Moon Tower.
That is super cool. This again, okay, so I think always like getting to call Adrian Healy a friend will be like the number one thing that's the coolest thing that we've done on this show. Meeting the Queen of the Netherlands is pretty high on the list, I think, in terms of like random things we got to do on the show. And Austin Pets Alive naming a puppy Moon Tower to be put up for adoption before a game, that has to be like the top three, right? Don't you feel like that does it get better than that?
I mean, if there's one that beats any of those, it's by the finest of margins. But yeah, it was very cool. We're honored to be considered for that, honored to be a part of that. But yeah, these puppies were precious. I think they're all up for adoption as of Sunday. So, and all like perfectly healthy. They don't always know whenever they get a pregnant dog into the shelter, but all the puppies were perfectly healthy. So if you're looking for a super cute little puppy named Moon Tower or any other Austin FC adjacent name, then give a shout to Austin Pets Alive.
Yeah, and then go back a little bit. So you went to the big supporters tailgate before the game too. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like I didn't have the chance to make that, but it seemed like everybody loved it and would like to do more of those kinds of things.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we were talking to people around at the tailgate. I mean, I don't want to say almost don't want to say it out loud because I don't want it to be true, but just looking at the state of things in the area around the stadium, I think it will be true. And that thing that I don't want to say is that I think in like 5 to 10 years, probably closer to 5, there's not going to be any more breweries in that area. They moved into that area because real estate was cheap, and the stadium is changing that, and real estate is no longer cheap. And so I'm guessing, I don't know that any or many of the breweries in that area own their land. So I'm guessing as soon as any of those leases are up, that they're all going to move elsewhere or fold up. Doing tailgates like that would be a really cool way to kind of keep the atmosphere alive. 2 things to contend with are heat. I mean, games in July and August, trying to be outside with a bunch of people, that makes it a little tougher. And then the other is just like that area is developing. I think the real estate, just like places to stand, are going to be at a premium in a few years. So maybe that makes it difficult. But it was a lot of fun, really cool vibes before the game. So it would be cool to try to figure out a way to make that an ongoing thing.
to do to get. Yeah, that's great. Well, let's go on to the game. So I think nobody knew what to expect, as you talked about. There's nothing to play for. We'll get into this after the break, but like Austin is down some players, down a coach, but they play like an exciting match. They win. It's actually a fun game, which I think we've talked about. Like, it's kind of okay to lose sometimes when it's exciting, and it's also sometimes not great to win when it's boring, especially in a game that doesn't mean anything. But like, this had a little bit of everything. It had late goals. It had fan excitement. Like, how was it in the stadium?
Yeah, I mean, the atmosphere was good. We talked about last week, like how we were unsure what the crowd was going to be like, what the atmosphere was going to be like. Crowd was not huge, but decent. I would say somewhere between 60 and 70% full. But the energy was quite good. And I think especially with the early goal, with just kind of the flow of the game, that the energy stayed pretty high throughout most of the game. And so overall, like, yeah, and especially with the ending being what it was, like walking out of the stadium, whatever it was 10 minutes before definitely changed and became like a pretty exciting atmosphere if it wasn't already before then.
Yeah, and what you have while like the raw numbers are down is you have the people who actually care, right? And the people who are their number one priority on a night in Austin where there's a Formula One event and there's an Eminem concert and there's a college football game and there's a bunch of other stuff going on. Like, the people that choose to go to Q2 Stadium are the people that value it a lot. So that's probably where, although the numbers were down, like the enthusiasm wasn't, no matter what, just because of the mix of the people in the stands and the way it all turned out, like in the way the club played. And then I think I saw like that we had some like guys like Sebastian Driussi, who don't normally like come to the South End and hang out and sign autographs and stuff, do that on that night. So like, for everything I was worried about a week ago about what this night might be like, it seemed like it played out really well.
Yeah, and even the atmosphere on the field after the game among the players was pretty celebratory. Like, it was, we'll get into this a little bit later, but maybe some like farewells for a few guys, maybe a few guys looking at this as like a fresh start. And then a literal fresh start for some of the other ones, which is maybe a thing to talk about now, which was Ervin Torres, 16 years old, gets his debut, MLS debut, and plays, I don't know, what was it, 20 minutes or so?
I think it was closer to like 10 plus extra
Okay.
time. So we got that announcement earlier in the week that Ervin Torres, I guess the day before maybe? It wasn't even
Day
earlier
before,
in the week,
yeah.
really. Day before that he had signed the two-way agreement, which would allow him to play up. And I think some people were excited. I think people were excited for you, knowing what an Ervin Torres fan you are. I think other people thought, well, this is great, but he's never actually going to see the field. And then he ends up doing that and making his debut. And it's crazy, as young as he is, that he's the second youngest player to ever debut for Austin FC, because he's actually older than Owen Wolf was. But still, man, he's a year older than Jackson Bentley, and it seems insane to me that he's playing in front of Q2 Stadium in a professional match.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Owen Wolf and kind of what he's become and what we think he's going to become, I think he is still probably the top prospect in the whole system. But Ervin playing for this team is a big deal. I mean, Owen played a little bit for the academy, but he was not developed in Austin. He's continued his development in Austin, but he was kind of like his qualities and learning was baked in quite a bit before he got here. Ervin has been here for a few years now, and the first guy to come, like, be in the academy for several years, play for the second team, and then get minutes for the first team. And like, it was a short little run, but he did not look out of place in the minutes he was out there, which I think is all you can ask from a kid that young in his first professional minutes.
Yeah, and I think talking about him is interesting in the context of somebody else who was, I believe, on the bench and did not get minutes to play, but he's in the same age group. So we saw some video of him and Micah Burton kind of walking into the locker room together and stuff. So Micah on the bench, but doesn't get time. I know you sort of posted a note about that group and maybe where they are developmentally. So do you want to get into that now?
Yeah, so we talked about last week how Ervin Torres was called up to the U19 national team. And so I went up, I was like wondering how his age compared to the other guys on the team. And that was the first time I'd actually looked at the whole roster. And so I opened the roster and started recognizing a lot of the names on there, and then realized the reason why I know a lot of these names is because they were the guys that Micah Burton used to play on youth national teams with. And so I looked at ages and like, wait, what's going on here? This is a team that Micah Burton is still eligible for. And so Micah Burton could have been called into this team and was not. Ervin Torres was. And so I think this is just a bit of a statement on who coaches on the national team level at the very least, and maybe even here in Austin, see as the best prospect between those two. And in the Austin FC Academy is Ervin Torres, although he's younger than Micah, is getting called into this national team. He's the one getting those minutes at the end of the game and not Micah. And I would not be surprised to see that trend continue and Ervin kind of become the star of the Austin FC Academy as far as players who have come through it.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think this is like as much of an indictment on Micah as much as it shows like how much Ervin has grown in stature over this time. Not that Micah hasn't advanced, but you know, I don't like necessarily think it means that he stalled out. It just means that maybe Austin's developing a little bit more talent. And then I think I sent you this Instagram video, but it's kind of hilarious. The team posts Ervin Torres coming out of the field, and it's like he's excited. His parents are excited. They showed this like couple who's screaming, and I'm like, those are my friends Vanessa and Ralph, and those are definitely not his parents. But apparently everybody around them thought, they're like, well, congratulations on your child like making the first team. They're like, no, we've never met him before in reality, in our life reality. We're just like really big fans. So that was just like a crazy thing to happen to see from people you know, which sometimes happens, right, when you're watching Austin FC Instagram videos and you end up seeing your friends and people you spend a lot of time with there that you have inside knowledge of. But I thought that was like a funny thing to add.
Yeah, you sent me that video and I did think it was very funny. Yeah, I guess the last thing I'll say is like I think we've seen some national pundits over the last year almost criticize Austin for not having developed more youth to this point. And I've always been a little annoyed by that, just because you can't expect a first team player to come out of every class that you push through. Micah is of the oldest class. And so if he ever plays for the first team, that's a success. Ervin's the year behind that. It looks like he's going on that route. That's a success. And so I just feel like it's too early to indict this youth setup of not producing talent yet, just because it's too early. These kids are too young, and these are the first ones coming through. And so I'm not saying that the system is a success, but I think it's too early to call it a failure. And I'm hoping Ervin can be the first of several over the next 5 to 10 years that do go all the way through that path and get to play at Q2 Stadium.
Well, I think that's a good opening for this. Let's go ahead and take our first break, and then we'll get into the actual details of the match before we go into the Austin FC news and interview. This is another week where you wonder if we're going to have anything to talk about, and I feel like it's going to be a full show again, just because this game is so much fun to talk about, and because there's some other things that have happened that set up the offseason that are going to be interesting to folks.
We also got a contract extension today on a Monday. Thank you, Rodolfo Burrell and Austin FC Comms Department, for putting that out today and not tomorrow. But we'll get into that later in the show too. So hang tight. We'll be right back with more Moon Tower Soccer. When no one is around. Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FEF Law, the official injury lawyers of Austin FC.
FEF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education. And they are frequent appearers on We Are Austin on CBS, which will become relevant when we have our interview a little bit later on.
You can go to FEF.law to find out what makes FEF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's FEF.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. As a credit union, Amplify has no shareholders or parent companies. That means more of your money stays in the community.
Amplify has been the home of fee-free banking since 2022. Their free checking accounts come with 0 overdraft fees or minimum balances. That means Amplify's fee-free checking accounts can help you get more mileage from your everyday spending.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more and to register for free parking not this season, but next season at the Amplify Esperanza branch on game day, go to www.goamplify.com/moontower-soccer. All right, we are back. Let's jump into more details about the final game of the season against the Colorado Rapids. We knew that Pereira and Biru were going to be out. Unsure about the status of Dessler. He ends up not being on the game day roster, it's not super surprising. If there's any questions about his health, if there's any risk that playing is going to prolong that injury at all, better to shut him down, not risk it, get ready for next year. So not super surprising there. Another missing player that was surprising was Bukhari, not listed on the injury list. No news earlier in the week about him, but nowhere to be seen on the game day roster. And we ended up getting confirmation. I think Phil West was the first to report this via the Austin comms department. But where was Osman Bukhari?
He was in Ghana with his newborn baby. So, I mean, good for him. Not what we were expecting to see, but yeah, good for him to get back and do that. And there are more important things in his life going on than being in this Colorado match. So, nice for an Austin player to be able to do that, given some of the weird international travel family things that we've had with some other players in the past.
Yeah, again, if this is a decision day game where there is actually a decision for Austin, I would suspect he's still here. But given the state of the season, I'm sure they were happy to let him go and be there for that. So he wasn't in the lineup. We ended up getting a lineup of Brad Stuver in goal, Cascante and Svatak as center backs, Gallagher at left back, Hector Jimenez at right back, which we wondered if we'd see any tribute game starts. And I don't know this was entirely that, just because Hector is one of the few fullbacks we have on the team tonight. So maybe it was out of necessity, but it can serve as both at the same time. And then a midfield of Valencia at the 6, Ring and Driussi as the 10s, and then Obrian on the right wing, Owen Wolf on the left wing, Diego Rubio at the 9.
Yeah, and so we wondered if we would see anything different from Davy Arnaud in terms of lineup or tactics. And he in the postgame talked about how, they're not going to do anything fundamentally different. He's got 9 days with the guys. Like, they have a system, they have players. So anything that we would see differently on the evening was going to be sort of, in nuance. But I think that you did pick up on some things. So why don't you go into some of those where we maybe saw a little bit of thing that works differently from this is, again, in a one-game sample size, that might have gone differently from how Josh Wolf would have done it, or also maybe is relevant to the group of players that Austin had on the evening.
Yeah, it wasn't drastically different. And the things that I saw different, like you said, with a one-game sample size, it's hard to say if this is a thing that was a difference that Arnaud was telling the players to do, or is this a matter of the players on the field and the component parts of the Wolf system just working out with this specific group of players in a certain way. And so what we ended up seeing was in the attacking shape was like the 4-1-2-3 look. But then often Driussi was playing a bit more of that 2022 Driussi role, where he would often push up onto the front line next to a striker. Oftentimes Diego Rubio would kind of drop into midfield, and then Driussi would push up and kind of become the striker there, or Ring would do that at times also. And so, yeah, we've seen that variation at times some this year. The other things that I saw was Gallagher would often overlap Owen Wolf and kind of push up high and join that front 3, front 4 as a winger, and Owen would kind of drop in and take up that like advanced fullback spot in the build-up shape. And I quite liked that for both of these guys. I think it kind of maximizes their skills in certain spots without putting them into like permanent positions that maybe doesn't maximize their skills in other moments. And for example, like Owen could make runs in behind, stretch the line, play wide, but he's not necessarily the best guy to like spring in behind or take somebody on 1v1. Whereas Gallagher is good in those moments, but then he's also a strong defender. He's kind of better on that overlap with momentum behind him. And so I think it benefited both of those guys. And on the other side, you see Obrian kind of shifting inside and joining like a front three at times with Hector Jimenez pushing up high, which that benefits Hector Jimenez to be able to get forward because he has some good attacking skill, but has lost a step. And in transition defense, him pushing high can mean losing a guy on the other side if we lose the ball. And so oftentimes if he did that, you would see Ring or sometimes even Valencia, depending on kind of the game state, pushing over wide and filling in that same role, that like advanced fullback position in the buildup, so that it's a making a passing option while kind of pulling defenders out of the way. But also, if we lose the ball while Hector's pushed up high, we have another guy there to help in transition D. So, again, hard to say if these were like Davey Arnaud changes or if these are just component pieces of the Josh Wolf system that we've seen, and with the players on the field, this is how it worked out. But I thought it quite suited all the players on the field, and that Driussi was, I don't know, just seemed more active, more alive in this game. Rubio, I thought, had a solid game in certain parts of the field. And then, it just seemed to kind of fit the guys for big chunks of the game.
Yeah, you touched on it at the highest level, but like overall, before we get into the details of the individual goals, like Austin leads in possession, Austin leads in shots, Austin leads in X goals. Like Austin clearly looked like the better team on the night overall, even though it took a sort of a rally in order for the result to be in line with what everybody's hoping for and what he was expecting. So let's go and get into the game events. It's almost, the goals. There's a lot of goals to talk through on the evening.
Yeah, we get one early. Sebastian Driussi penalty in the 8th minute. I think the foul might have been like in the 5th minute or something, because there's a pretty long break for Georgi Mihailovic, who Driussi actually injures by winning the ball off of him. Driussi kind of takes a big touch in the midfield. Mihailovic goes in to win it, and Driussi stabs the leg forward and wins the ball. And in the meantime, I don't know what happened, but if Driussi caused it or just like threw him off, but he rolled his ankle pretty hard. Looked like a bad injury in the moment. It seems like it's not. It's just an ankle, like a turned ankle, and so maybe not as bad as it seemed in the stadium. But that's Colorado's best attacking player, if not their best player, period, right there. So they'll definitely be missing him in the playoffs, or at least the first game. Hopefully he'll be back sooner than that for them. But during that break, if you'll think back to the last time Driussi took a penalty.
I was going to ask, like how are you feeling at this moment in time after cursing him, then trying to uncurse him, and then maybe not doing that? But like, what's going through Landon Cottom's head? So during this break,
I stand up and turn around, and ATX Burkamp Lover 6969 420 sits quite near me, and so I turn around, and I just needed a witness for this, and I made eye contact. I don't know if he understood what I was saying, but I just started yelling, Driussi's a bum. He's going to miss it. He's going to miss this penalty. And so I just needed to get it out there in the universe as a reversal of this curse. Driussi steps up to the spot against 18-year-old Adam Beaudry in goal for Colorado and just smashes the ever-loving crap out of this ball and doesn't really place it at all, just hits it as hard as he can. Beaudry dives, has no chance.
Yeah, this goes back to when you were originally, before you cursed him, the confidence you had in him was that he would just like stand up, hammer the ball, whatever happens, happens. And it was just that confidence that he had. So I feel like maybe we're getting a little, I mean, not that Driussi's like suddenly redeemed his 2024 season, but over the last couple weeks, we've seen a little more of that sign of life that leads one to believe that hopefully 2025, with the right pieces being added, will be a little bit of a return to more like the 2022 form from him.
I mean, I hope so. And I hope we can get some players in to make that easier for him. I hope whatever he needs to be happy he gets, because he seems to be maybe just a little bit of a diva at times, but that's what you get with $6 million players sometimes. So I hope we can get him operating properly again.
And this is going to lead right into the Colorado tying goal, I feel like, speaking of Driussi and his goal influence.
Yeah, so Driussi receives the ball between lines, a little bit under pressure, and as he often does, he'll take that extra touch. He'll hold the ball a little too long. Oftentimes, it will lead to him doing something special and opening up space that wasn't there before, finding a pass that wasn't there 2 seconds before. But also occasionally, it ends up to him losing the ball in a really unfortunate position, and that's what happens here. He has several options. It looks like he's finally winding up to play a pass all the way back to Stuver, which makes it even more annoying that with those extra seconds, he wasn't going to do something cool or interesting or useful. He was just going to play a back pass. He could have done that 2 seconds before Abubakar was on his back and pokes the ball away between his legs. But that is what ends up happening. Abubakar pokes the ball away. Navarro's off. Cascante's got no chance. He runs past him. He takes a touch away from Svatak so that he can't really get there. Hits the ball back across the goal. It seemed like maybe Svatak got a touch, but a tough save for Stuver. He's not able to get there. And with a guy like Navarro, I think that's his 15th goal of the year. Like a guy like that's going to finish in that moment, and he did.
So that's gonna so the halftime score is 1-1. We do have 5 yellows before halftime, and I believe that this is going to open you up to provide commentary on the lead official in this match.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take this opportunity to go
all caps on Chris Pinso.
So Chris Pinso he was the center ref on this game. I think, I don't know, Jeremiah, tell me if you disagree with this. I feel like I am fair to referees. I will give referees credit when they deserve it. Do you think that's a fair statement?
No, it's absolutely a fair statement.
Okay. I just want to frame this here. I don't think Chris Pinso's calls necessarily affected the outcome of this game, but I think he definitely affected the quality and enjoyability of this game by inserting his own personality and emotions, and I'd argue his own ego into this game. I'll leave this vague as to not get myself or anyone else in trouble, but there's a ref that I've had in a rec league game before that, like there's a foul called, I don't know, ball doesn't go your way. Someone just says, "Oh, come on." And that's kind of it. Like the player may not even think it was a wrong call, but they're just frustrated. They want to voice something. This ref, I've seen them follow players around the field explaining themselves when the player didn't even care. They're done. They've moved on. And this guy's slowing down the game to explain themselves to the player. And it's like, it's fine. Just go away. It's okay. But I think there's some times where a situation calls for a little bit of escalation or a little bit of like fire from the referee. But for my money, a well-ref game is called with like minimal ego, a cool head, managed emotions, and that's rarely what we see from Chris Pinso. And interestingly enough, his wife Tori Pinso is also a center ref in MLS. She is excellent at this. She is so good at managing games from this regard. And like, I'm sure there's some body or organization that's like keeping track of what calls were correct or like judging calls. I don't know any of that. Like all I can judge is like how a ref manages the like emotional part of the game, the flow part of the game, keeping heads cool, letting like what's a yellow, what's not a yellow, when's the right moment to do all that. Tori Pinso is very, very good at it. And I find it immensely frustrating that her husband is so poor at this kind of thing.
So it's not just the uncles. That's what I'm hearing from many people are saying that. So yeah, let's get into the second half. So we get Actor coming off, Rio comes off, Zardes and John Coleman is coming on. So this is like a like for like sub. It's at 75, and then right after that we get return penalty kick for the Colorado picks up that's going to put them in the lead and maybe takes a little bit of the energy out of the crowd, although not a ton.
Yeah, I think it does for a while. On this one, it's a bad turnover. I want to say it was Valencia. I can't remember who gives the ball away in midfield, but it's one of those moments where it's like a bad moment, a bad part of the field to give it away, and Austin's under pressure in transition. Omir Fernandez receives the ball at the top of the box. Gallagher is closing in on him. And as Fernandez takes his first touch, Gallagher arrives there and puts a hand on his back. There's pretty minimal contact, but Fernandez goes down pretty easily, in my opinion. But Gallagher should know better than to put his hands on an attacker's back in the box. Like, it's going to get, if he goes down, it's going to get called 10 out of 10 times. And so he has to know better in that moment. But yeah, Fernandez steps up, takes his own penalty, sends Stuver the wrong way. And it is 2-1 in favor of Colorado. Just a few minutes after that, we get the next set of subs. This is Brendan Hines-Ike and Ervin Torres come on for Julio Cascante and Alex Ring. I was watching the subs warm up, and I thought this was, I don't know, kind of touching, nice to see. But you had Hines-Ike and Matt Hedges standing next to each other, and then next to them it was Ervin Torres and Micah Burton. And so firstly, just the height differences there was entertaining, but then you could see the two older guys like kind of leaning over and talking to the younger guys, and like that, I don't know, that's cool. That's cool to see, just like experienced pros sharing whatever knowledge, even if it was like the most trivial of things, like talking to these guys and like helping them become pros. That's cool.
That is super cool. And obviously these subs, both the 75-minute and the 83-minute one, would have a lot of effect on the end of the game.
Davey Arnaud is a genius. Let's hire him.
Absolutely. I did see that. I did see that. Like, these are the kind of aggressive subs that Josh Wolf would not have made. Although they feel like they came at 75 and 83 is usually about the same time when people complain.
If they put him on 65th minute, we would have scored 5 goals.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. When I looked at the times this time around, I was surprised that it was so late after reading the commentary about subs. But all that to say, Austin's down 2-1 with like past the 90th minute, and we get the best of John Kolmanich, which he will be rewarded for MLS Team of the Week in a nice little 30 minutes maybe worth of work, because that's how the MLS Team of the Week works. So the first one of these is an assist on an Ethan Finley goal at 90+1.
Yeah, so this one, Austin has already started throwing numbers forward. I think I counted 5 or 6 guys in and around the box, including the underlapping center back, Brendan Hines-Ike. So he receives a ball, plays it wide to Owen Wolf, and then continues his run forward into the box, if that gives you an idea of what kind of tactics-free zone Austin was operating in at this point in time. But yeah, Kolmanich receives it first time on the pass back from Wolf and puts in a cross. Colorado is kind of flat-footed, not really reacting to the additional numbers in the box, and the ball finds Finley in just a huge gap between defenders. And I wrote down in the notes here, and he nods it in, but upon rewatch, it was a pretty impressive finish. It was a little further out than I thought it was initially, and then the placement on it was actually quite good, like a really good header from Ethan Finley here. So well done to him.
Yeah, and I think it's true of both these goals, right? I mean, the common thing on both these goals is not just like a John Kolmanich assist, but it's like a quality header that could have not gone in given all the other situations. So good on both these guys for picking up these goals.
Absolutely, yeah. The next one comes, I think it's 2.5 minutes, maybe a little more than that, after this first goal. So it's 90+3 on the clock. There's a long Gallagher throw. We have numbers in the box. It gets headed out, and that deflection leads to a long distance shot from Jean Kolmanich that also gets blocked. Valencia is one of the deep guys. He wins the long rebound and just kind of like puts the ball up in the air just to get it out of danger. The ball falls to Driussi wide left. Kolmanich continues a run in behind, and Driussi plays him to the inline. He carries it to the inline, chips the ball back across into the box. all those numbers from that long throw are still in, which is why Brendan Hines-Ike is in the box again. But he does a really great job to dive past the defender. So there is a center back in front of him, in between him and the ball. And but Hines-Ike has momentum in his running. He dives, just lays out, dives past the defender, and is able to get his head onto the ball. And that defender didn't even know it was coming. So yeah, lots of credit due to Brendan Hines-Ike here. He gets some good contact on the ball. The keeper gets hands on it, but it was hit with such power that he's unable to keep it out of the net.
Yeah, then there's not much time left after that. So Austin ends up picking up the 3-1, 3-2 victory on the Knights and finishing in 10th place, finishing above FC Dallas, I think is a thing that probably everybody appreciates given sort of the length of the season and how it was like up and down, but mostly down. Let's talk about some players. I think just a couple, because we don't always do a good job of these things. Statistically speaking, so Ethan Finley becomes the 8th Austin player to reach 100 appearances. I was trying to I did the sporkle that somebody posted, like of players and appearances in order, and I've already forgot number 7. But yeah, Stuart, Gallagher, Ring, Pereira, Cascante, Driussi, Lima being the 7th person to cross 100. Finley now 8. Brad Stuver, this is like the kind of stat you don't necessarily want. The second most saves in a season for a keeper in the last 20 years in MLS. So good that he made that many saves. Bad that he had to make that many saves. And then you have a note here on Svatak and what you saw out of him.
Yeah, I mean, I've been pretty high on Svatak, and I think I said in my initial scouting report of him that he is not an elite passer of the ball, but he's clean with the ball. He knows his limitations. This is a game where I was actually it made me a little concerned about his passing ability, because I thought he made some pretty poor passes in certain moments, and hopefully it was a bad game and he like his baseline is higher than what we saw in this one, but I thought his passing was overall quite poor in this one, and his defending still fairly good. And the other games we've seen him defending was quite good, but that was just one concern I saw from him. I did want to insert a listener question here, just because it's so apropos of this game. This is from Alex Modney, and he says, should Sean Kolmanich move to left wing instead of left back this offseason if he stays? My reasoning is his defense is lacking, but his crosses are sublime, and moving him to a more forward position will put the team in a better tactical position overall when they need a comeback via crosses. Take me to school if I'm wrong. Cheers. I would say you're right that his defense is lacking, which is maybe part of why like this game was so well set up for him, because by the time he comes on, Austin's not really worried about defending anymore, as proven by the overlapping center back tactic that they employed. And so Coleman is kind of just set up in that little pocket and just was throwing in crosses all night, that's the thing he's good at. I'd say his defending is quite bad. So yeah, I don't really like him playing 90 minutes at fullback, but I'd also say his dribbling isn't great. He won't touch the ball with his right foot. He's not very fast. He's not a goal scorer. And so I don't really love him at wing either. Maybe there's some like wing back role in a different shape, a different tactical setup where that is kind of his ideal position, but I think he has limitations no matter where you put him on the field, and those limitations change depending on where you put him on the field.
Yeah, and I just want to echo your point that like the spot that he was put in the game to be like a late sub when you need and are chasing goals is probably the best place for him, and then it's probably still at fullback, and you would hope that Austin has better options on the wing other than a guy who's really never played winger playing left wing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, is that same thing with like John Gallagher in this team is like, okay, is he better than some of the other options in this current team? Sure, maybe. But is he a good option on a good team with better players on it? Probably not. And I think that's especially in this offseason is how we need to judge, and how I'm sure Rodolfo Borrell will be judging these guys is not better than what we currently have. Is it better than what we can get elsewhere for the budget space that we have. And that's going to be the real question.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And then one more person I want to talk about before we get into the news and the interview, because I believe this is going to be the last we've seen out of him. It's like Hector Jimenez. Like, I'm glad he got the start. I'm glad he got the minutes. Definitely like a good dude, but a guy that's also 35 and pursuing his coaching license, and who signed a 1-year contract to come back this year. And I think, was he on a supplemental this year?
I believe so, yeah.
I think so. So, like, it feels like this is the end of an era for him. So, adios to Hector. Appreciate everything he's done for this club. Like, he's a great glue guy to have around. And honestly, maybe through circumstance, like, Austin expected and got a lot more out of him than I ever thought Austin would this year, compared, like, given his trajectory in minutes over the first 3 years that he was here.
Yeah. It's probably, I mean, almost certainly there's other guys who we're not going to see in an Austin jersey again. But like you said, this is probably, we're not going to see Hector in any jersey again. So, yeah, definitely worth pointing out. And, yeah, good luck to Hector for whatever comes next.
All right, let's take another break, and then we'll cover a little bit of Austin FC news, and then we'll interview Trevor Scott. Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Sage Wilson Realty. The Sage Wilson team is made up of Austin experts who are client-focused and have over 30 years of combined real estate experience.
If you or someone you know are in need of Sage real estate advice in Austin, talk to our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com.
Moon Tower Soccer is also brought to you by Tony C's Pizza and Beer Garden, serving New York-style pizza and authentic Italian. Now open in Round Rock in front of Del Diamond and on Anderson Lane near Shoal Creek Boulevard. They are Austin-owned and operated.
And they're Austin owned and operated if you live in my neighborhood, because there's a little Tony C's car that I see driving around every once in a while that I'm not really sure what it does, but it's good advertising, I guess. The Anderson Lane Beer Garden is just 2 miles from Q2 Stadium. You can stop by for pizza and a pint before all of next year's home games. And with TVs on every wall, it's a perfect spot to watch all away games. And I'm sure they'll have other sports and other stuff on as well.
Yeah, you can check out the Pizza of the Month, Pizza Polly, which features marinara, fresh mozzarella, burrata, basil, and prosciutto crudo. And this is where I out myself on having gone to the Texas-Georgia game, but the Tony C's, there's a Tony C's little stand right by where our seats are. And I didn't really want to order pizza on Saturday night, but everybody had a little Tony C's pizza around me, and they smelled and looked so good. Jackson and I both got Tony C's pizza, and even in the stadium, it's amazing.
Don't forget 2 for Tuesday pizzas, where 2 pizzas are the price of 1 every Tuesday, and then Pitcher Perfect Thursdays, where they have half-price pitchers of beer. Bring the whole family to dine in, or you can pick up for takeout, for lunch, or for dinner. Check them out online at TonyC'sBeerGarden.com.
Moon Tower Soccer's premier sponsors, McGuire Woods Consulting, helping clients in the public affairs space, from lobbying at the local, statewide, and federal levels to digital and communications campaigns across the country.
McGuire Woods Consulting has offices in Chinamela cities and is proud to support Moon Tower Soccer and support Austin FC's march to the 2025 playoffs. Contact our friends at McGuire Woods Consulting at mwcllc.com for more information. All right, we are back, and we are very happy that the Austin FC media and signing gods have smiled upon us today and given us important news on a Monday instead of a Tuesday. Hot Air Obrian got a contract extension today.
Yeah, he did. So this is through the end of 2026. This is a 2-year extension with a 2027 option. Another person who's happy about this is Marcelo Tayson, who will join us for over-under, because I believe he had an over-under question about how many signings would break after the show came out. And he's probably already calculated it, and so this won't change his number, and we won't have to argue about it next week. Obrian ends up leading the team, sharing the lead. I believe this is right. Sharing the lead in goals in MLS competition with 7, and in all competitions with 8. Both tied with Sebastian Driussi. For a guy that was a re-entry draft, right? Pick. That's a really strong year. It's like I feel good about it. I mean, I know he's 29, has one of his best seasons of his career. It's one of these positions where, like, are there better wingers than Haider Obrian in this world? Absolutely. But for what I believe the value probably is, like, he's a known commodity and the kind of guy that you have to have on an MLS roster if you're going to be good, being productive.
Yeah, I was. I'm trying to remember. It might have been Zach from the North End that I saw the other night that we had this conversation, and whoever it was I was talking to knew that like I was down on Obrian as a starter for this team. Just my take is that if he's a starter for this team, like that is not a title contender, and that he's a limiting factor in that regard. And their point that I conceded was like, if he is the weak link on the team, then that is fine. Like if we can upgrade, we bring in a DP striker, we can upgrade Alex Ring's position and to someone who is either a chance creator or goal dangerous. And Hunter Obrian is like the third or fourth most dangerous player on the field, attacking wise. I think that's a scenario I can live with. If he's our leading scorer again next year, that's a problem.
This is going to be a 10th place team again next year if that's the case, because there's no goal trajectory in the world where you expect 10, 12, 14 goals out of Hunter Obrian, right? Like 7, 8 is probably what you're going to get out of him. And to your point, then he can't be one of your leading scorers on the season. So I think we won't know until with the spring how much the actual money is. So that becomes a factor we don't know.
We still haven't gotten the MLS Players Association salary drop for the fall. And so there's a chance his new salary ends up on that drop, but it's unclear. Even if they say they put that out this week, does that number get updated, or is it the old number? I don't really know. But yeah, those are the big questions for me. Is he did have an option year that Austin FC could have picked up, and instead they chose to re-up for a longer contract. What I'm hoping here is that they said, okay, Hunter, there's a small salary bump or maybe the same money for 1 year. We could do that. Or instead of giving you a raise for 1 year, like a medium-sized raise for 1 year, let's say we give you a slightly smaller raise, or maybe that's like a modest raise for a longer contract in order to sweeten the deal a little bit and get him to stick around on a smaller number that still makes sense for the team. And then he gets to stick around in a place where he's comfortable in a team that he's already at. That's my hope. If this is a case where he's getting a big raise for this longer term contract, that's a situation that I'm a little less comfortable with. But the money he's on, I think his guaranteed salary for this year was $537,000, something like that. For his output, like that number's not bad. It's pretty good money to goal ratio there. But if it jumps up to 700 to $1 million range, I think that's a little less good of a deal. But the fact that it is a longer term one makes me think that there's a good chance that the negotiation was, we'll give you less money, but guaranteed for more years. And I could see a guy in Obrian's position taking that deal.
Yeah, and that would kind of fit with the it's kind of the Gallagher deal we saw, right? Where it was a good number. You know, it was a number that the team, it was a club friendly number, right? You like lower number of salary on an annual basis, providing more security to the player over the longer term, which seems like a good deal to make. And then we also got a rumor today.
Oh wait, there's one other thing about the Obrian deal that I'm hoping this also means that the front office has faith that they can get him a green card soon. He's currently taking up an international roster spot, I believe. Tell me if I'm mistaken there, but that would be huge if they could get a guy with this output on that kind of number who no longer takes up an international roster spot. That would be excellent. Like that would make this a good deal for me, like a really good deal for me. So hopefully that's the case as well.
Okay, now let's go on to the striker rumor. This is a connected to a German player that was. I feel like it's one we can talk about because the credibility of the person reporting it, because the text of the tweet that we read was like read a whole lot like an agent who was looking for a bigger renewal contract with the current club, because there was a little bit of that in the context of the tweet about how his current club is also interested in extending him. So maybe can I get my English translation to come through on this right now? So maybe read us the rumor.
Yeah, it's coming from a website called, I think, 90minutes.com. But it's essentially saying, and it's the initial report came from Sky Sports Germany, but they're saying that Austin FC from the MLS has, quote, shown interest, and that his name is Marvin Duksch, and that he's being discussed as a designated player. That's about it. The initial source was a video from Sky Sports Germany that I could not get to play because of geo-locking. And then even if I did get it to play, I'm sure it was in German and would not have understood it anyway. So yeah, it like, this is not like firm report, but given the sources that it's coming from, there's at least some smoke here. I think it's worth paying attention to a little bit. I did not do my normal full-on deep dive scouting report. I'll do that if it becomes a full-on report. But for now, I just watched the YouTube highlight reel and then looked at some FBref stats and stuff like that. But what I've saw from that is that he's big, I think 6'2", not an immense athlete, but has really soft feet, really good technical skills. And then if you look at his numbers, playing in the Bundesliga at the moment for Werder Bremen, pretty good numbers, both goals scored and assists. And if you look at kind of the ghost stats as far as expected goals, expected assists, things like that, it seems to be a good chance creator, which I think could be a good fit for what Austin will likely be wanting, especially if Driussi stays, having someone who can be a bit of a chance creator and a finisher at the same time and kind of float into different positions and still be useful in those positions. He is currently 30, will be 31 in March. That's, if this comes to be, that's maybe my only concern. The guy is still putting up good numbers in the Bundesliga, and so if he stays healthy, I'm not worried about quality. I'm just fearful of a Gyasi Zardes situation where he gets old overnight suddenly.
Yeah, and that's a totally reasonable fear to have. And also, it's a guy that's played not in like meaningful matches, but I believe twice this year played in friendlies for the German national team. So, like in that perspective, this would be a higher profile player than has been in Austin. Definitely one to watch.
I asked Mark Tost, who comes from a German family, and he was very excited about this. And so he was like, yeah, if this happens, I'm going to be thrilled. So a guy who pays a lot of attention to the Bundesliga and to German soccer, and he's into this.
All right, we got the MLS offseason calendar. I wrote officially official. We talked about this last week, so I think we can probably skip over this a little bit until we get into some of the particulars around it. So there's a couple other things that you wanted to touch on before we get into the interview. So I will add last match for the barcode kit was on Saturday night. Very happy to see it gone. It's not one that I expect to wear again. I think I may have lied to Ryan Madden when I told him it grew on me once when he asked me about it. So like that one's going to the back of the closet. I don't know. How do you feel about the loss of that kit?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it fine, but I'm not sad to see it go. I love the Dillo jersey, so if we can build on that and do something else, like there's potential for me to like it more, is what I'll say.
Yeah. Now, just a couple other player things. Julio Cascante gets in off the bench for Costa Rica last week. I think it was actually the day this show came out. So they have a 3-0 win over Guatemala to advance to the Nations League. Danny Pereira was an unused sub last week in Venezuela's 2 loss to Paraguay. And speaking of Paraguay, Roddy Redes picks up his 5th goal of the season to lead Olympia. Now 5 goals in 18 matches over Libertad. Is he the secret? Do we need to bring him back?
It was
an
an
international
mistake.
deal.
We shouldn't have let him go.
Should have let him go in the first place, right? Yeah. And then just like league-wise, we get these Matthew Doyle Matthew Doyle does these sort of post-mortems on every team as they get knocked out. So Austin, obviously very early in, not making the playoffs. So we get that piece. And I feel like there's a couple specific things that you wanted to cover in this article.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad trash talking Matt Doyle so often, but the guy in a league with coming up on 30 teams, they essentially have one expert covering all the teams now in the state sponsored MLS media pool. And it's unrealistic for him to be an expert on all these teams, but that doesn't mean it doesn't make me very annoyed when he pretends to be an expert on all these teams when it is it's quite clear that he doesn't watch the games. He's only looking at stats.
He can't, right? Yeah. To be fair,
So,
all right, let's
some of the highlights here.
Your highlights or lowlights.
He said, Bukhari, the splashy signing, was one of the 3 additions made this summer with center back Svatak and right back Dessler, the others. Those 2 have been integrated a little more slowly than Bukhari, who started in 8 of his 9 appearances. Again, Dessler was integrated before Bukhari. Dessler's been injured. That's the only reason he's missed any games. Another part, it seems Burrell was content to let the current group have one more crack at it, then use the gigantic amount of roster and cap flexibility he'll have this winter to dive fully into the reboot. If you look at the roster stuff at all, or listen to what Burrell says, he's not happy to do that. He was forced to do that. We have no other spot to do it. We would have had to move players. Nobody wants our players. So Burrell is very unhappy to have been so dormant in the winter, and he was just forced to it. And then the last one, talking about, it was a list of players to build around. And under Svatak, he says, hasn't looked good so far, but he's Burrell's signing, so he'll get plenty of chances. And this one was the one that was like, okay, bud, you've not seen this guy play. And someone challenged him, like saying, like, I thought Svatak's been quite good. And Doyle comes back with like a passing stat saying like his progressive passing isn't very good or whatever. And I was like, okay, this is like the biggest tell I've ever seen, that like you have not watched this guy play. Cause if you had, you would know like, yeah, passing isn't his strong suit, but he's so good at being a defender that it's fine. Like I'll take that trade-off. And it just annoys me so much. Like say you don't know, that's fine. But he never ever does that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder how much of that is, like, we've had him on. I mean, it's been a while, but you know, how much of that is like what he really believes and how much of that is in his role, that the league is like, no, you need to be the guy. You have to be the expert and present yourself as the expert because we have nobody else.
I think it's 100% the second one, but like,
it's still annoying.
You're cashing the checks, bud. So I'm going to criticize you while you're doing it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's maybe transition to the interview before we close this show out. I think this was kind of fun. It's one we've worked on for a little while. Guy we've known for a while and sort of talked tangentially about having on the show. And we've actually been on his show before. We didn't talk about that. It's been a while back since then, but let's transition to the Trevor Scott interview.
All right. We are thrilled to be joined by Trevor Scott, who is the host of We Are Austin on CBS Austin. Trevor.
Yes. Hey.
Thanks so much for being here. It's great to see you.
Are you kidding me? It's good to see you both. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor. I've learned a lot from your podcast as I begin to be a sportier soccer follower. Thanks to Austin FC, I've learned a lot from you guys. So it's an honor to be here.
Yeah. So kind of part of the reason why we reached out to have you on is you recently did the Heartbeat of Austin, the kind of pre-match ritual that we do in the stadium there. So in a little bit, we want to ask you a bit about that. But first, let's kind of wind back the clock. We were trying to do this off air a little bit, trying to remember like how we all connected. I know you and Jeremiah had done some work stuff together.
Yeah, definitely.
Here and there. But then the three of us and Adrian Healy did this Soccer 101 event at the W Hotel. And I think it was like early 2021.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, the people are definitely right. That whole era is a little foggy. But yeah, I think it was early 2021. It's really before anything had really kicked off.
Yeah, do either of you remember why or how that happened?
No,
I
don't. Was Sarah Wolf involved for some reason? Good Party? I truly don't know. Or my friend Catherine from the W may have asked. I'm not super sure how we all ended up together in the same room there, but I'm glad we did because it was a very cool night and kind of exciting because, as we said, it was before any of this really took off.
Yeah, I always remember that night for the Adrian like lining us all up to describe the offside rule, which involved, I think somebody asked him in the room and it involved like, I think I was playing defender. Trevor, maybe you're the person moving between lines receiving passes, but we referenced that back to that a lot. That was a really fun part of that event.
The wall. Yeah, it was good.
It also like increased, Jeremiah's rubbing shoulders with bigwigs in town all the time. But as far as my like 6 degrees of separation cachet, it upped mine severely, getting to meet you, Trevor, and then also getting to meet Adrian and eventually becoming friends with Adrian, who we had him on the show a couple of weeks back. And I don't think that would have happened without this event that we're talking about. And so,
Yeah.
looking back, I'm like, oh, that was pretty cool that happened.
Catalyst for greatness. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I know that I think maybe you told us at some point when we were talking to you that you are not a lifelong soccer fan.
Correct.
And that Austin FC is one of your first times kind of really diving into the sport. Yeah. And am I right that you got season tickets for the first time this year?
Yes. Yeah. For the first time this season, 2024 season tickets. And it's been awesome. But I signed up on Oak Collective before the first ball was kicked out of the city. Yeah. So I've been waiting for a long time, but I signed up right away to try to get in there. And yes, I've had a full season now behind me of season tickets, which has been amazing.
Well, so what was what made you, why this sport, why this team? I mean, I assume probably you share a love of Austin, that both of us do. And, Landon and I, neither one of us grew up watching this game either, but what was it that really attracted you to this project and really made you a soccer fan?
Honestly, I think at the beginning, well, number one, I think we could all attest to the fact that there was just such fanfare, and there's such a story behind getting this team to Austin. And being in local media too, I was probably pretty face to face with it more than your average bear, I would imagine. So I kind of caught a little bit of a bug, just some excitement for the idea of it before it really all even started. But I think you kind of hit the nail right on the head. It's because I love this town, and it seemed really exciting to me to have the opportunity to be in at the ground level of a professional team here in Austin, Texas. And so at first, that's kind of what drew me to it. I thought, this is a rare opportunity to be in a city in a time that's just like Austin, growing as quickly as it is right now, and have the opportunity to kind of get in on something that felt kind of magical and grassroots right at the beginning, and just say, however long down the road, I've been here since the jump, since the very start. And that was really before you even started to learn about who this team and this culture would become. And I think that is obviously a huge, huge part of it. Because I was not a soccer guy. I wasn't against soccer. In fact, I would say if you were going to have to sit me down in front of a screen and watch a sport game, I probably would have chosen soccer. I think it's fascinating, dynamic, fast, super interesting. So yeah, no, I was not a huge soccer fan. Didn't dislike it. Just wasn't on my radar until we really had a reason, and it started pinging big time here in Austin.
I think that's a pretty common story for a lot of Austin FC fans, and probably the case for other folks who live in MLS cities who have gotten a team for the first time, started paying attention to it, and fell in love with maybe not even the sport, maybe the sport also, but on top of that, like the community, the atmosphere, just like the vibe around it, that is like at its best, like when it is good, way different than other American sports.
Yes. Yeah. And so many people say that from the top to the bottom. I mean, when it really started to catch on, I think, right, guys, that this team culture and fan spirit started to become a little bit more evident. People all over the place were saying, what is going on with this Austin team and this club that has this incredible community? Like, what's going on there? This seems different. And it felt different. So yeah, I think I'm in the same boat with a lot of people.
So you were chosen to do the Heartbeat of Austin on, it was it Pride Night at
Yes.
Q2? What was, okay.
Yeah. On top of
I don't
it
remember
all.
what the branding on it was for the evening, but yeah, Pride Night at Q2, Heartbeat of Austin, a really cool thing that has become a tradition before games now.
Yeah.
Talk to us about how that all came to be, and then what it meant to you to be able to do that.
Yeah, Trennis Jones reached out, who's kind of the guy who does a lot of the community stuff with Austin FC, and obviously by now I've become very familiar with a lot of their efforts.
Trennis is so cool.
He's the greatest dude, and I think I met Trennis on my show. Story of my life, like so many of the good friends and great contacts I have in Austin, started off with an interview when he was doing a community-based soccer organization before he was even with Austin FC. So we kind of had gone way back and would run into each other at matches every once in a while. And my fervor for the team had become pretty evident. So he reached out and invited me for the Pride match. And so there was, that was, first of all, to be able to be invited to even do the heartbeat, because some serious, much more deserving people in town have beat that drum, with Kurt. But to even be invited, I was just, it was beyond. But then also to kind of be able to do that on a night that was really important to me, being Pride Night, and represent, another community that the team and the fan base support so deeply. It was just awesome, guys. It was like, I was Mother Ginger in the Nutcracker about 7 years ago, which was one of the coolest things I've ever done in my entire life, until I beat the heartbeat of Austin. It was really just a surreal, deeply kind, and like energetic and friendly and supportive experience from beginning to end. Like the moment Trennis welcomed me to the stadium, took me back, introduced me to a bunch of folks. I got to take my picture with Stuver on the field, watched them warm up, practiced with Kurt, got up there, got water sprayed on me. It is honestly, I'm a really lucky guy, and this job puts me in a lot of cool places and positions, but it will be very difficult, I imagine, if I live to be 100, to top how that night felt and how special it was. It's one of the neatest, most wonderful things I've ever done, ever. I can't imagine topping that.
Well, you've talked now twice about a guy that I think is like an unsung hero sometimes of this, and we don't mention him a lot. Like, talk about like Kurt Lambert. Remember the first time, the very first game, he's like, "Okay, guys, I got to go hang out with McConaughey. I'll be back." Like, and we had no idea what was going on. But like, he seems like a beautiful human too.
Yes, yeah, just the best spirit. He's so friendly, and when you're getting up there to do that, as fun as it is, it's pretty nerve-wracking. You're in front of a 21,000 plus crowd or whatever, and I've never done anything like that. A lot of things I have context for, right? So I've done a lot of things, and I've done theater, but I had zero perspective for what this crazy night was about to be about. And Kurt was so wonderful about just being friendly and excited about it and teaching you what to do. So it's just, it's a drum. But when you get up there, I mean, we've all had those moments. You get up there and you're like, what, 1, 2, 1. He was so good and such a kind guy. And I think you're exactly right. Like can he beat his own drum? Is that a thing? Could we have him be the heartbeat? He's such a good dude.
Yeah. He's I imagine you can appreciate this, Trevor, but like Kurt is a guy who is a showman in the sense that he understands how to make entertainment happen and knows that like it takes more than just playing the right note at the right time, and and just like knows when to crack the whip, knows when to to be friendly. Exactly. And that's the thing that I appreciate in any craft, and having been behind cameras and microphones more in the last few years in a very limited way. Watching what you do on TV impresses the hell out of me because I'm able to go back and edit bits out. We can redo it if we want to. And what you do every day on TV is like, no, it's 3, 2, 1, go. We're live. And then to not stumble over anything the whole time is just endlessly impressive to me.
Thank you. That's not always the case. I appreciate that though. But I have my fair share of stumbles. But just like I tell guests when they're on the show, this is not the news. This is not stuffy. It's lifestyle. It's casual. We have fun, and if you make mistakes, it makes you a person, and you just have a good time. But yeah, I mean, it's just like jumping without a parachute. You just 3, 2, 1, and you're off. There's no net.
Well, and you get the chance to talk Austin FC a little bit on the show, right? Like how is that sort of like the blending of both your worlds? How has that worked out for you?
It's awesome. It's so much fun. So they know I'm a big fan. So basically every match weekend, that Monday, I'll have a little recap of the match. The atmosphere at Q2 is a thing that I don't think many people understand. And so even if they are soccer fans, or maybe if they're not, and they're perhaps becoming fans of the club and the team, the atmosphere at Q2 is this thing that you just can't explain. I always tell people, you have to go to a match. Come with me. I've got season tickets. There's a day that Davis is out of town or something like that, or one of my other friends in our group. Come experience this, because Q2 is just such a cool environment. And I think that's a big part of it. So every Monday I've got pictures of, me who I ran into this person or I got to meet the honorary mascot of the match from Austin Pets Alive, or ran into Trinus or another 10 friends, so it's a really fun time to be able to chat. And then Eric Goodman from the Verde Report for the Austin Chronicle has been on a few times. And it's really fun that you should say that too, because I did kind of begin this journey as a fan of the club and the culture. And, along the way, if you sit at enough soccer matches, you start to understand and learn and get it. And I matched Eric at the beginning of this season. We did a little bit of a red card, green card, yellow card kind of a trivia game. And I got every single answer right. Listen, you can edit this out, but I beat Eric. And that was a fluke. It was a fluke. It's just because it was that day. I don't know. I'm not sure what it was, but you start to learn something along the way. So that's been kind of fun too, is to be able to talk about it on TV and know a little bit more what I was talking about. Still a long way to go, so no trivia, please. But it's been really fun to be able to talk about that and share that culture, because I think a lot of people who know me or watch the show might think, well, that guy, he doesn't know anything about soccer and he loves this team. What is going on? We got to get in on that. So it's been really great to be able to kind of share that and spread that kind of joy, proselytize a little bit for the Austin FC on TV. It's been such a cool thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that is, going back a little bit to you talking about the atmosphere at the stadium, I think American soccer fans have a bit of an inferiority complex in some regards about the way that we play the game on the men's side anyway at the national team level, and then the quality of MLS as a league. But as far as the stadium atmosphere goes, like this is world class. This it's not like, oh, it's good for Americans. Like, no. Like English people will look at what happens in the best MLS stadiums and be like, oh, that's special. That's really cool. Yeah. And then on top of that, for it to be a place that represents Austin in the best ways, that it's a place you can come as you are, whether you're a joyless nerd like I am, who is watching every fullback overlap and back pass, or if you're just there for the vibes and are just enjoying it, or anywhere in between those things, there's a place for you there. There's a place for you in the community. There's a place for you in the supporters groups. And that's what I hoped this team would be, what I hoped this community would be. And so I just think it's really beautiful that that is what we ended up getting and what we have here. Yeah,
totally agree. And I hope we can preserve that, And it's been challenging, and I think that's been a good test of it, right? And you guys would know better than most that, if you'll find a fair weather fan pretty quickly, and especially in soccer, which something I have learned about is obviously a very impassioned fan base. So there are a lot of names and a lot of yelling around in my section, but you do understand that the team through hard times, the culture really kind of continues to buoy the team. I really feel like that. I feel like it's a symbiosis, right? I feel like there's a real relationship going on there between our support and their success, and their success and our support is as reliant on each other. Does that make sense? I mean, it's just really, it's a cool relationship.
All right. Well, Trevor, we greatly appreciate you coming on. Where can people find all of your work or your social media presence and all that?
Sure. I appreciate it, guys. You can, every single morning at 9 a.m. I'm on CBS Austin, on We Are Austin, and then I'm pretty active on Instagram at Trevor Scott ATX. It's just where I like to post a lot of things. I've got season tickets for 2025, and I'll be there. I'll be in that seat in my Verde, ready to rock. I'm very excited to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much, Trevor. Appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. We'll see you guys soon.
All right. We want to thank Trevor Scott one more time. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Moon Tower Soccer. We would encourage you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. That helps us out a lot in new folks finding the show. If you want to continue the conversation, come find us on Twitter at LVHero87 and JBentley_ATX, and then at Moon Tower Soccer on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Sign up for the Patreon. We still got enough of this year's rewards to send folks some new stuff, and then we'll be getting ready for some new rewards next year. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week to report on the results of the over-under prediction game with Marcelo Tayson. That's always a fun time of year where we get to,
reflect on how dumb we were.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how stupid it is to try to predict anything in this stupid league. So that's going to be the bulk of the show is the over-under review with Marcelo. And then we'll talk about any other Austin FC news that breaks. Until then, I'm Landon Cottom.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Thank for nothing, see you never.
La gente. Oh my God.